Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at a few of the community questions that have recently been asked in the comments thread of videos on this channel. We'll also be catching up on the FPLFanatic League to see how the top players are going. And if you are in fact interested in joining this league, there's an auto join link in the description below, and of course the league code is in there as well if you are at all interested. Entries will be closed for this in game week 19, so you can still join right up until probably the close of game week 19, and as soon as the game week 20 deadline kicks over for the game week 20 game week, we'll probably shut down the league at that point. But before we get started, if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out. And if you enjoy the following content, make sure to give it a thumbs up. So it's been a little while since we checked in on the FPLFanatic League, but I do intend to make it a common talking point for the weekly video that I will be doing that's going to be more focused on the community. Last that we checked in, Charlie Seaver was top of the league and I was sitting in around about 11th place in the league. I have since had a few mediocre weeks since then and have dropped all the way down to 38th in the league overall, but Charlie Seaver has been absolutely storming it, maintaining top spot for pretty much all the weeks since we last checked in. Now, I'll bring up his team. He's currently ranked 711th in the world, and he's been been top of the league for a little while. Take a quick look at his game week 14 team. Is that at the right size? Yeah, it is. So he's got Areola in net, Trippier, Tsimikas and Gabriel across the back line. He did in fact captain Salah this week, so went against the crowd of Haaland captainers. We got caught out, both of us there, by about 2 points overall, so it was only a 2-point loss on the captaincy compared to Haaland captainers. He's got Saka. He picked up Gordon's goal in the 1-0 win. Very nice there. And Mbumo, who I believe was one of his transfers in this week. He bought an Mbumo for Diaby. Oh, and he went from Son out to Saka. It's an interesting play. I will have to. If you're watching the video, Charlie, drop us a comment as to why you decided to go Saka over Son. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So he's got Gordon, Mbumo, Palmer. So he also got caught out by the random Palmer benching, which I discussed in the video yesterday. Haaland, and he's still got Julian Alvarez up front. But look at this bench. He's got Watkins, 11 points. Charlie Taylor with 10. Pedro Porro, did he not play? Oh no, he just conceded 3 goals, right? So he did play the full 90. Mate, that is a bit of a rough bench there, and he still managed to come away with 66 points, which was, still a green arrow? Which was a green arrow of 100 places. Now, 100 places up at these levels of rank is huge. So he's still going very strong. Could have been a little bit stronger if he had played either, I suppose, Watkins or Taylor, but I understand benching them both. He is currently top of the league on 945 points. Very close behind is Ethan Chua, if I've pronounced that right, sorry. 937 points, so only, 8 points behind. He had a stormer of a week with 79 points. currently ranked 1,521st in the world. Pretty similar team. He's got Son over Charlie and played Watkins and Taylor, so he's had both Watkins and Taylor as well. Benched Lascelles. He's made all of the correct decisions here, apart from maybe Lascelles over Pinnock. 79 points, definitely chasing Charlie Seaver down. It is quite close near the top of this league. To round out the top 10, we've got Jan Picallo. Is that something on my screen or a T? Oh yeah, it's something on my screen. Clyde Bickford, who I've been commenting with in the comments on a few of the videos. Rabidi Dido in 5th. Socrates Yanako. And my pronunciation, apologies guys if I do get this wrong. AC in 7th. Liam Trevor, who drops quite a few comments on the videos as well, in 8th. Sam Jones and Robert Mitchell rounding out the top 10 places. So we will keep a close eye on the top players in this league who are very high up in the world rankings from week to week moving forward now. So if you are interested in joining, do hit that auto join link in the description below. So how does that look on screen? So I've kind of hacked together a way to bring up some community questions that have been asked on some of the most recent videos on the channel. The first one up is from David Jones, and he was commenting on the last video where I did discuss the slight rotation to Gabriel. It's a slight threat of rotation to Gabriel in the Arsenal squad. And he says, the only thing I'd perhaps question is the Gabriel rotation risk comment. Saliba was rested in the match after Gabriel's benching, but it was in the FA Cup. I'm viewing that as Arteta wanting to rest both of them, but not feeling he could rest them both at the same time. Now, these are actually very good points that David has brought up, so I thought I would go through and discuss kind of how I weigh up the difference between Premier League fixtures and the FA Cup. So we do need to be a little bit careful when assessing the game time from non-Premier League fixtures, as managers can use these games to play their second strength team in order to keep their match fit, or to try out potentially some combinations, so like maybe a centre-back pairing or your right back and right winger pairing, because they often have to work quite closely together. There's a few different positions around the pitch in which combinations do become quite important, so managers might test them out in those non-Premier League games. Or they may also be testing out fringe first team players that could be pushing to make their way into that first team squad. Now, not only that, and it's obviously going to be very hard to tell what the manager is in fact doing in these non-Premier League games, but we also need to keep in the back of our minds what competition is being played and what stage are they at in the competition. So, for instance, a Champions League fixture would obviously warrant fielding a much stronger team than, say, a Europa Conference League match, right? So in this case, it was the EFL Cup, which was, I think, the round of 16 games. So they are relatively deep into the competition. If I just come back. So the last game that Gabriel was benched was against Sheffield United in game week 10. You can see here on screen, he completely missed out this match, which is the one that I did talk about in the last video. And then straight after that, they had the EFL Cup round of 16 on the 2nd of November. So 29th of October, 30 days of September. So maybe like 3 days in between for the round of 16 EFL Cup match where West Ham hosted Arsenal. And if we actually bring this up, this is just through the Google Google search queries, which is what I use quite often. Now, caveat with this, you do have to be a little bit careful with the formations that Google shows when they are showing the lineups of the teams. They can quite often get it wrong, and so what is actually being played on the pitch can be quite different to what is actually showing up on the screen. So you do actually have to go and have a quick look at those matches to make sure that they will have the personnel right, but they may not have the actual positioning on the pitch correct. So if we have a quick look at the lineups here, we can actually see that West Ham actually played a few of their first team players. So Souček, Kudos, Jared Bowen. I think Sufal is probably up there as well, although I'm not entirely up to play with the West Ham team, as I haven't really been looking to invest in them for FPL this season. So I may have got a couple of the West Ham players wrong, but Arsenal have definitely played like a second strength team with a few of the, I would say, fringe first team players. So Nketiah, Trossard, Havertz and Ben White have all started games in the Premier League, but they aren't all consistent starters or known to be nailed on as first team players. So other players in here like Reece Nelson, Jorginho, although Jorginho can get quite a bit of game time. Vieira, Kiwior, Ramsdale is the second choice keeper at Arsenal. I mean, the only real nailed on first team player here is probably Zinchenko in at left back. And so, as we can see here, it is not a full strength squad. And so it does actually become a little bit difficult to tell whether or not Gabriel has been put into this team to strengthen a second strength team, i.e. he is playing as a first team player in order to put out a strong enough team to compete in the EFL Cup round of 16 or not. So Kiwior did in fact play in this Sheffield United match alongside Saliba, and I believe early season it wasn't Kiwior that actually got Gabriel's spot either, and so very hard to tell whether or not Gabriel is actually in question, or if he is looking, because first of all, Gabriel early season they were playing Partey at right back as an inverted right back, and Gabriel was the man that ended up missing out altogether. Now the system has changed back to what Arsenal were using more consistently in the previous season, so they tried something new at the beginning of the season. I think Arteta has moved away from that, and it does look like Gabriel and Saliba are the first choice two centre backs, but Gabriel was the sacrificial lamb in the early season and is also being played in this EFL Cup match. So it is very hard to tell from this whether or not he is still nailed on for the Premier League team. But I think David is probably right here. He is probably still first choice in that Arsenal squad. And maybe that threat of rotation isn't quite as high as what potentially came across in the last video, but we do still need to be aware that Kiwior could in fact come in, or he could even change up the system moving forward. So I probably wouldn't let this stop me from buying Gabriel for my FPL team. However, in my specific FPL team, I am running such a light bench that I am just looking for absolutely nailed on assets. And so even though that slight threat of rotation is there for Gabriel, with the heavy fixture congestion coming up, I will most likely outlay the additional funds if I do decide to invest in the Arsenal defence and go with someone like Saliba instead. So hopefully that answers your question there, David, or was it even a question? It was probably more a bit of a statement. So Benchmarks has asked, Reece James, good pick or bound to rotate? So Reece James is an exceptional FPL asset when he's fit. So he's definitely a top candidate if we can time him right. Now, I think everyone that's probably listening to YouTube content about FPL knows that James has a pretty horrific injury record. He has missed most of this season already through injury. So if we just bring him up here, he played game week 1, got 75 minutes. Can't actually remember if he got injured in this game or not, and then he was just basically out until he came in off the bench in game week 10 for 23 minutes. So he's coming back from a long-term injury. He has actually had a few setbacks for that long-term injury. So he's so injury prone, unfortunately, that when he's even coming back from one injury, sometimes other injuries are popping up. And it seems like he's just got a few niggles that just will not go away. His most recent comeback was when he started game week 11, so he only played one game off the bench in game week 10. He then played game week 11 and game week 12, 76 minutes and 63 minutes, so it already looks like his minutes were being managed by Pochettino. There were also some comments from Southgate about the potential call-up to the England squad, and those comments were more around, I mean, Reece James is really looking to get back to full match fitness and not push himself too much. That was kind of the gist of a whole series of comments from a whole bunch of different conferences or press conferences. So that doesn't fill me with confidence in looking at someone like Reece James. The good news is, though, that he doesn't look like he's actually going to be pushed or flogged, i.e. come back, play 90 minutes for a couple of game weeks just to end up getting injured again and being out for a long time. So I would suspect that he will start probably most matches and hopefully make it to the 60 minutes, which is the crucial time period for any defender that we are looking to bring in. And if he does make it to the 60-minute mark, it is probably not necessarily that much of a bad thing for FPL, as he only has to keep a clean sheet across the 60 minutes rather than for the full 90 in which he is on the pitch. So potentially not too bad. I mean, I don't think he's just going to come in off the bench for the last 20 or 30 minutes. I think he'll be more managed from starting the game and then coming off early, as he is pretty key to the Chelsea squad. But I think given the rotation threat and injury record, I'd like to see his minutes over a few fixtures and see how he's actually looking on the pitch. Like, is he running around freely? Is he doing full field sprints? Or is he kind of holding himself back and, you know, subconsciously nursing himself through, well, what has probably been quite a frustrating couple of years for Reece James, and his focus is on getting back to full match fitness. So that can actually play on footballers' minds, especially if you have had a lot of injuries and you haven't been playing too much football. So as of right now for game week 15, it's a bit too hard to tell because he was red carded in game week 13 against Newcastle. So it's hard to tell how long he was actually going to make it in that fixture, and obviously he has served his suspension in game week 14 in the Brighton match, and so we would probably be able to assess whether or not to bring him in for game week 15 had he not received that red card. But because he's had that red card, I think it's too much of a gamble, at least for me, to jump on to a Reece James this early. But in a few weeks, if we're seeing promising signs from him, he will most certainly be on the radar. But again, the fixture congestion coming up is incredibly heavy for all the top teams in the Premier League. So I would probably just skirt Reece James for the foreseeable. And then finally, we have one more question from Grubula. And some of these names are incredibly hard to pronounce. He says, or asks, would you say Son is essential more so than Trips or Trent Alexander-Arnold? In my thoughts, that a cheaper mid like Gordon plus Trippier or TAA could outscore both Son and Lascelles, for example. Now, this is actually a great question. So, I am a very strong advocate for Son Heung-min. He is probably one of the top 3 assets in the game behind both Salah and Haaland, or Haaland and Salah in no particular order. And that is largely due to a few things. One, Son has a much higher upside than very attacking defenders like Trippier and Trent. So if you just, in a straight shootout of Son versus either Trippier or Trent, I think Son is more likely to consistently score more points than the premium defenders. And the reason for that is that defenders usually need to keep a clean sheet as well as getting an attacking return in the same match in order to get a double-digit return. So this is the higher upsides. And it only takes 1 goal to wreck that. Now, having said that, both Trippier and Trent have shown that they can get multiple attacking returns in the same fixture. So we just saw this from Trent in game week 14. He got, well, it was a goal for Trent, but it actually went down as an own goal as it came off the crossbar, hit the keeper and then went in. But he basically scored off a free kick and then scored the winning goal at the end of the match. And so by all means, he can return multiple attacking returns. Similarly, Trippier got 3 assists in the same match earlier in the season. I forget what game that was. I think it was against Sheffield United in the 8-0. He got an 18-pointer from 3 assists. He did also keep the clean sheet as well, so that's a monster haul there, 18 points from Trippier. So it is definitely possible, but I think it's just far less likely that defenders are going to get multiple attacking returns, as opposed to someone like Son, who is an out-of-position midfielder. So he's playing in that number 9 role, but listed as a midfielder, so he's getting 5 points for every goal as opposed to a forward's 4 points. The whole system just seems to be geared around getting the ball to Son to finish. He is the talisman of the Spurs squad, and is an incredibly clinical finisher, and so he doesn't actually need a hell of a lot of chances to score goals. So in just normal circumstances, I'd be prioritizing Son over the defenders. But with the addition of Son jet setting off to the Asia Cup in game week 21, I think it makes him an even bigger priority to get in now. As the longer you leave this transfer, the less viable it probably gets, as he will only have a shorter run of games in your team before you need to get rid of him. And Son's upcoming fixtures from an attacking point of view right up until game week 21, which he will miss for the Asia Cup, are incredible reading. So West Ham at home haven't I don't even know. Have they kept a clean sheet all season? They're basically conceding every game. All of you Areola owners out there will know that. Newcastle at home in game week 16 is going to be an incredibly tough game, but I think Spurs and particularly Son can just score against anyone. We just saw that in the Man City fixture at the weekend just gone. Son came away with a goal and an assist, scoring 3 goals at the Etihad. And Man City's defense is premium, so right up there with Newcastle's defense as well. And this game is also at home, so they aren't actually having to travel. I could definitely see Son scoring or even multiple goals in this game. And then the next run of fixtures is just sublime. Nottingham Forest away, Everton at home, Brighton away, and Bournemouth at home before Son departs to the Asia Cup. I would definitely be prioritising Son ahead of a combination that involved one of the premium defenders. And although he may not actually be essential, I think he is one of the top 3 players in the game, which basically makes him probably as essential as you could, well, in use of the word essential. I know not many people like that word out in the community, but there you go. So that is it for today's video. So if you enjoyed this video and got something out of it, press the like button and consider subscribing. And if not, that's all good too. I appreciate you watching. And until next time, cheers.